All right, we're back. This is Techmath1. We're looking at review chapter 9-10, and this is part 2. Part 2. So we're on number 13 in the packet, and so they gave us an equation on a line, and they gave us the x value, and then they want us to find y. So you just put that in for x. And so we got 4 plus 4. Because, right, a negative times a negative is a positive, and that's 8. Okay. Little different. They gave us y, so that's a little harder to do. 4 minus 2x. Because now we got to solve for x. So we're going to subtract 4, and that's going to be negative 3 is equal to negative 2x, and then divide by negative 2. And negative divided by negative is a positive 3/2. Or if you tell me 1.5, that's fine, or 1.5 if you'd like. Okay, then let's find the y-intercept, find the x-intercept, and then graph. So here we are, find the y-intercept, find the x-intercept, and graph. So you have to know the y-intercept, make a little tiny baby xy chart with just one value in it. If it's the y-intercept, x is 0. And so then you go up here and you put 0 in for x, and then you figure out y. So negative 3y is equal to 12. I divide by negative 3. Y is equal to negative 4. So that is my y-intercept. 0, negative 4. Remember, this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. So it's where it crosses the y-axis at 0, negative 4. To find the x-intercept, we do almost the same thing. We just put in 0 for y, and that'll give me the x-intercept where it crosses the x-axis. And so if I put 0 in for y, I get 2x minus 3 times 0 equals 12. So 0 times anything is 0, so it goes away. And x is equal to 6. So 6 comma 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 comma 0 is the x-intercept where it crosses the x-axis. And now 2 points to determine a line. So you just draw the line in there. Make sure to put the arrows on the line, please. All right. And then this one, they just want the equation. Well, anytime it's a vertical line, it's x equals whatever number it goes through. So it's going through negative 3. So that's just x equals negative 3. If it's a horizontal line, then it's just y equals whatever number it's going through on the y axis. All right. So let's look at 16. So 16, write the slope of the line below. So they give us a line, and then we have to figure out the slope of the line. And so if you grab a couple of points off of the line, you could do it algebraically. I didn't do it that way. I grabbed a couple of points off of the line. This goes through at 3, and then it's 1 comma 1. So if you wanted to, you could go like this. You could go 0, 3, that's that point, and 1, 1. Make sure you pick exact points. Don't pick any in-betweeners, all right? And so exact points meaning it's right on the grid. It's right where the grid crosses. Then you could just do the slope formula and say the y minus the y over the x minus the x. And that is 2 over negative 1, which is negative 2. That's fine. You could do it that way if you want. There's an easier way, which is how I kind of mapped it out on the key, was from this point. I just said, how did I get from this point to that point? Well, I went down 2 and then to the right 1. Down 2 and then to the right 1. There's my slope. Negative 2 over 1. Doesn't matter where the negative is. If you want to say 2 over negative 1 or negative 2 over 1, it's fine. Just don't put it on both of them because it's a negative slope. It's going down, so it should be a negative slope. All right, 17. They give you 2 points, and now we have to use that equation. The slope is the change in y over the change in x. That's also known as rise over run. So x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And then so this, -2, minus that, -4. This, 5, minus that. Be careful when it's negative like this. So many times, I've seen this in my career, where students accidentally go just 5 minus 3, because they're like, oh, the negative's right there. Well, no, there's a negative, there's a minus in the equation, and a negative on the number, so that actually makes it a plus, right? 2 negatives in a row make a plus. So this is 2 over 8, and then we reduce it. So we have to reduce that, divide by 2, top and bottom, that's 1 over 4. All right? Be careful when you reduce. Even maybe write it down, and so you see 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4, because I get a lot of students that just try to do it in their head, and they tell me 1/2, because they're thinking of the 2 that goes into both of them instead of what it actually is. All right? So that's 17. Let's take a look at 18. So they want the slope and the y-intercept. So y is equal to mx plus b. So we need it to be y equals, and then the slope is the thing in front of the x, and the y-intercept is the other thing that doesn't have an x on it. So we want to solve for y. So we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. And that gets rid of it on that side, pops up on the right side. And now we're going to divide everything by -6. Okay, but we're not just going to do a big long line like we did with the, where it was all variables. We're going to do it individually because we need this number and we need this number. So y is equal to 3/6 positive, right? A negative over negative is a positive. And then minus 10/6. But we have to reduce both of those. Divide by 3, top and bottom there. That's 1/2 x. Divide by 2, top and bottom there. That's 5/3. And so there we have our answer. So the slope is the thing in front of the x. So just don't put the x on it, just the 1/2. That is the slope. That means go up 1 and 2 to the right. It would be positive. And then the intercept, they usually put it as a point. So 0, -5/3. It's always 0 for x, and then the y is whatever that value is. So that's where it crosses the y-axis. All right. Okay, number 19. They have us drawing a parabola, but they didn't want us to use our calculator here because they gave us points 0, -1, 2, and -3. So they gave us these points for x. We sub them in, figure out what they are, and then graph them. So when I sub 0 in, 0 times anything is 0, 0 squared is 0, and then 0 times 2 is 0. So 0, 0 is a point on our graph. I put in -1, 2 times -1 squared. -1 times -1 is +1 times 2. You guys do exponents first, remember order of operations. So 2 times 1 is 2. You put in a 2. That's 2 times 2 squared. You do the exponent first, so 2 squared is 4, times 2 is 8. And -3, oh, that's going to be one big Twinkie. 2 times -3 squared is +9 times 2. Oh, that one big Twinkie is from Ghostbusters, the real old Ghostbusters. 2 times 9 is 18. And so -3, 18. Okay. So here we are, 0, 0, we got -1, 2, we got 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, way up there. And then we got -3, and then that's way up, -18, I'm just weighing it up there. And now it's a parabola, so that's like a U shape, with a pointy end on it, like Bert's head from Ernie and Bert. So it's a U in that it's a curve and it's getting wider and wider and wider and wider as it goes up, but then it comes to a point on the head like a V. So it's got a point, a vertex, but it's a U shape in general. All right. Okay, let's get the last ones here, 20 to 23. Oh, okay, so function notation. So g of x is just a fancy way of writing y. They want to know, where is that function undefined? Well, you can never, ever, never, ever divide by 0. So it's all real numbers, except there's one value that's not okay. And the one value that's not okay is positive 2. So x cannot equal 2. All right? And the reason is you can't get 0 on the bottom, so you could do the not equals 2 sign, but then you do it just like an equation. Solve. So x cannot equal 2. So all numbers except for 2. Make sure not just to tell me 2. Make sure you write all reals except for whatever the number is. All right? That would be like the biggest screw up ever if you said to your mom, I want everybody to come to my party except for Fred. Don't invite Fred. I hate that guy. And then the only one to show up to your party is Fred. Then that's kind of the biggest mess up that could happen, right? That was the one guy you didn't want to see. You want everybody but Fred. Same thing. Okay. So now look, find g of negative 2. So they have this defined. All it is substitution. You've done this already. You're just going to pop in a negative 2 where there's an x. So g of negative 2 is equal to 2 times negative 2 plus 3. Order of operations, multiply before you add. And there we are. G of negative 2 is equal to negative 1. All right. And then what do they want? Yeah, this one's a little weird. 22. Let me get the board cleared for that. So that was that one. It's weird in that they have you kind of doing two things. Here, let's take a look. So 22, f of x is equal to 3x. And they said find f of t, which is easy, but then minus f of t plus 1. And that's the harder part. So f of t is, you just put a t where there's an x. That's it. F of t is super easy to find. It's 3 times t, which is just 3t. All right? So f of t is easy to find. But now we also have to find f of t plus 1. That's going to be a little trickier because now we put, instead of x, instead of 3x, we're going to sneak in a t plus 1. And then you have to do the distributive property. So it's 3t plus 3. All right? So maybe you might say, well, that doesn't seem too hard. That's not that bad. But then we're not done because now they want us to take this thing minus this thing. So 3t minus 3t plus 3. And we have to remember to distribute the minus to the binomial, to the 3t and to the 3. So 3t minus 3t minus 3. And now the combined like terms, and those go away. And so this is our answer, negative 3. So f of t minus f of t plus 1 is negative 3. All right, and then 23. They want the domain of the square root of 3x. So y is equal to the square root of 3x. And they want the domain. A domain is a list of what x can be. So again, it can be all real numbers where x is got to be, the square root has to be 0 or bigger. So greater than or equal to 0. You can take the square root of 0. That's okay. You can take the square root of 3. You can take the square root of 6. You can take the square root of 9. You know, you can, any positive number that's bigger than 0 or bigger would work. Okay? So the square root must be 0 or positive. So again, if you want the work for that, you would say 3x has to be greater than or equal to 0, and then you divide both sides by 3, and 0 divided by 3 is just 0. And so there is sort of the work. Okay? Awesome. That's what the test is going to look like. Make sure you know how to do everything.